Hello everyone and welcome to Lesson 2. We're still discussing Black Lives Matter. This is the second part of the keywords for this lesson. So our first word for today is stereotyping or stereotype. It is a mistaken idea or belief many people have about a thing or group that is based upon how they look on the outside, which may be untrue or only partly true. Let me give you an example. For example, the thought that black people are all bad and are all killers and are all criminals just because they are black. Or thinking that all Arabs are terrorists just because the Middle East has some problems. Or thinking that all Lebanese people are Muslims and they wear hijabs, for example. The next word is protest. Protest is a public expression of objection, disapproval towards an idea or action, typically a political one. You all witnessed the protests that happened in Lebanon in October last year, where all the people went down to the streets and they fought for what they believe in. So a protest is when people go down to the streets and they demand their needs and their rights. The next word is social injustice. Social injustice comes from the word society and justice, but injustice يعني the opposite of justice. Okay? So being unfair. So the relation of balance between individuals and society measured by comparing distribution of wealth differences from personal liberties to fair privilege opportunities. So social injustice is the difference between the statuses, the positions, what people have money, their different social status, and the difference between, for example, thinking that black people are all poor and white people have all the money. Okay, so this is social injustice. Yani not being just to all society or to all people. Or just because you are black, I will give you less money. Okay, you will take less money than the other white employees, for example. Police brutality, I spoke about this in the first slide when I was talking about George Floyd. Police, you know what's police? Brutality, it means being aggressive, brutal, aggressive. So it's the excessive use of force by law enforcement, so by the police. It can be legally defined as a civil rights violation, so it's something not accepted, in which officers exercise undue or excessive force against a person. So when a police goes and puts his knee or his leg on someone's neck or someone's head, this is police brutality, and many black people have died because of police brutality. It's when police use their authority and their power, but they abuse it to hurt someone. So what are the types of racism? So we have the internalized, interpersonal, institutional, and structural. The first one, internalized racism. Internalized racism lies within individual. It means inside. Internalized racism lies within individuals. There are private manifestations of racism that reside inside our minds. For example, when we think about other people to be less from us, for example. Like prejudice. Prejudice is when you envy or when you hate someone just because of their race. Internalized oppression and privilege and beliefs about race influenced by dominant culture. So just because you're black, I'm going to treat you this way. Or just because you're black, I'm going to think about you this way and judge you. Next, we have interpersonal racism, which occurs between individuals. Interpersonal, it means between people. Once we bring our private beliefs into our interaction with others, racism is now in the interpersonal realm. For example, public expressions of racial prejudice, hate, and bias between individuals. So, for example, when I see a black person and I go and hit him, for example, just because he's black. Or for example, if I have white and black people in the room, I hug everyone and I kiss everyone, let's say, but the black person, I don't touch him because for me the black person is dirty and I don't accept him and I hate him. So this is when you act wrongly to a person. Next one is institutional racism. Institutional racism occurs within institutions. Institutional racism is discriminatory treatment, unfair policies and practices, and just if you want as an example, it's treating someone wrongly just because he's from another race, especially in work. For example, if I'm a manager or I'm the boss and I have many employees, let's say I give all my white employees, let's say $100 as their salary, but for this one employee that's black, I give him 50%, $50 instead of 100, just because he is black. So for the example written here, over 300 black people are killed each year by law enforcement. Law enforcement, it means police. So it's rules and practices against a different race. This is a graph that shows you, just here you can see who is shot by New York City police, and we can see how many black people are shot and killed, and as you can see down you have the black and next to it you have the white. Okay, you can see the huge difference between the black and the white. The black people are wounded. The yellow is for wounded, which means they are injured or hurt, and the blue one is for if they're killed. So as you can see, the black people are very, very, very high statistically than the white people. The white people are killed, but very rarely. Examples of institutional racism. While 2/3 of the population is black, the mayor is white in this city, and 5 out of 6 city council members are white. So imagine you're in a city, okay, all the people, let's say you go to Africa, let's say, okay, all the people of Africa, let's say they are black, okay, but you find the mayor or the president to be white, and most of the people in the government or in power, they are white, okay, so that's very, very wrong, very weird. Or only 3 of 53 police agents are black. Imagine that in a police station, 50 policemen are white, but only 3 are black. So you can see how they are even treated very poorly and unfairly. The last one is structural racism. Structural racism is racial bias across institutions and society. It's the cumulative and compounded effects of an array of factors that systematically privilege white people and disadvantage people of color. Excuse me. For example, the racial wealth divide. Okay, so structural racism, it comes more down to actual society, to the people. If you look at white people and if you look at black people, of course, the first thought that comes to your mind, which is wrong, is what we see in the TV, okay, where the black people are mostly pictured as poor and not that privileged, and they don't have a lot of money and they work anything, whereas the white people have all the rich positions and the rich jobs and have rich cars, very expensive cars, or houses. So this is the example here, the racial wealth divide, where whites have many times more wealth. Wealth is money or richness of people of color. It results from generations of discrimination and racial inequality. Last example of structural racism, black unemployment in the US is 12%, while the national average is 6%. So in a country where there's a lot of black people that are unemployed, it means that they are without a job. Okay, that's very alarming, that's very, very wrong. And the second one, according to the US Census, 1 in black families live in poverty. 1 in 4 Black families live in poverty, which is extremely high. For women-headed households, the number increases to almost 50%. So that's really, really a lot.